Welcome you all. In this video, we are going to see about Spring Startup Project and Restful Web Service Part 2. In this Part 2, we are going to focus about post mapping, delete mapping, and put mapping. The get mapping we had already completed in Part 1 of this application, and straight away we will launch the Spring Tool Shoot 4 IDE and the application which we developed in Part 1, which is the Restful one. And in this application, already we are having the Restful one application class, which is a main class, and then one more control class, which is used to listen the browser URL and trigger the function accordingly. So in this controller class, we are already having three functions. In addition to that, we will add our next few functions, which is going to be listening for post, put, and delete mapping. Let me create the post mapping now. The post mapping will be imported, and then we have to listen for a browser URL change. I will be listening for /insert, and then the function for it. Let me have a return type initially void. I will say insert student, and this is the function. When you say insert student, we need a student to insert. That means I have to create a student class here, and I will be inserting that in a list or map. We will have a map here. So first I will create a student class. Right click the package, new, and then class. Just create student class. The student class will have three variables: ID, string name, and then double CGPA. Just have the setter and getter methods for this. Right click, source, generate getter setters, select all, and generate. Now the student class has been created. Go back to your controller class, where you will be expecting to store the student object. So it need to be stored in a map. When you type map, it will ask you to import. Just import from util package. And map, as you know, it is having the key value pair. Key will be the primary key, that is the ID value of the student, that is based on integer. So you have to give integer. Then the value is the actual student object. So actual student object is been done, and the name of the map student, I will say, equal to new. Map is an interface, so you have to go with the implemented class, which is a hash map. You have to import that again. So the map is been done. Map name is student, and I want this to be static. So before the class object creates, like before the actual process, the static process will start initiating it. So when you say static block, you can able to assign the values before these functions getting triggered. Okay, so I will have it as a static object, public static. The reason why I'm making it as static is then only I can make it use inside the static block. Why I'm creating the static block? This block will actually run before any controller will listen for the browser URL. So when the project starts, at that moment itself, this static block will initialize the values to it. Then whenever you are retrieving or posting some values, it will be adding the data to this list or map. Okay. So in the static block, I'm just creating a student object, student space s1 equal to new student. I want to set the values actually. So s1 dot set id, the first student, and then s1 dot set name, s1 dot set name. Just I'm setting the name as name1. Then s1 dot set CGPA. I will set the CGPA to 9.0. Now I need to add this S1. The add method can be made with the put. Just you say student dot put, and what you want to put it, like S1 dot get ID. You have to pass the ID as a key and then the value as S1. So similarly, I want to create one more student for it. Just I will create the second student, S2. I will change the ID to 2 and name 2 and then CGPA to 9.3. And here S2 dot get ID and S2 I'm making it. So now I made initially two values inside my map. I can able to retrieve it and I can able to add, delete and modify it as well. So one by one we will look into that. I have written the insert function here. The idea is to insert into this map actually. While you are saying insert, you need to get the actual body of this student object. That means ID, name and CGPA. You have to get that body from the request. How to get it means just you can say request body annotation. This will retrieve the body from the request and that will be assigned to the subsequent object, that is student space something like S3, or just say yes. So now S is the retrieved object. Just you have to add the values. How to add, like the student map object dot put function. Then you have to say the key, that is S dot get ID, which is from the retrieved object. Then yes, you have to make it. After making it, that means after inserting it, you have to display the entire list. Then only we can identify that it's been inserted. That means you have to return the entire student object. Now the return type is being mismatching because the return type we had given as void. So I will change that void to the map type of integer comma student. So now exactly the student map which we are returning, which will match the map type of integer comma student, and that you will get in the browser window only if you say response body here. Otherwise it will look for the JSP page with the name of student. Now you are expecting to get that in a browser window with the response body annotation. We will go with the retrieve value as well, like direct retrieving. That is like public. We want to retrieve it, like I can say show is the function, and the function return type is going to be again map because we are going to retrieve all the students. Nothing as input to the function. Whenever the request rises to retrieve, you just return student, the actual map object, which will return all the student values. And you have to listen it for the browser URL change. And here I will say get mapping because it is going to retrieve the data. Normally we will use get mapping for retrieval, post mapping for insert the data, delete mapping to delete, and put mapping for updation of data. And this is RESTful service. We can use the same URL with get mapping and post mapping as well. For example, in the post mapping I had said insert. Now you can simply say student here, and you can also say here the student. That means both will listen for the same URL, and whenever the slash student occurred in the URL, it will trigger the particular function. Now there are two functions to trigger, so it will first check who is calling the slash student URL, like the get method or the post method. If the get method is calling, then this function, the second function, will get activated. That means public map show function will get activated. Whenever the slash student is called by the post method, then public map insert student function will get activated. And by default, your browser URL, whatever it is changing in the browser URL, all are by the get method only. If you want to make it as a post method, then you need to have one JSP form with the action and method type post, or else you can also trigger from the Postman app that we will see in this video on the later stage. Now I'm just going to retrieve the value which is on the show method and which will return me the student object entirely, and my return type is matching. Get mapping I had set. Now also I have to say request body to retrieve the data in the browser, otherwise it will look for the JSP page as I said. Now both insert and retrieval done. Now we will go for the delete mapping. So delete mapping, I will listen for the same slash student, but this time I need to retrieve the value, like retrieve the ID what I need to delete. Now I am not passing the ID with the body of the request, because only the ID value I am passing. It is not an entire object like ID, name, CGPA to pass it in the body of the request. Directly I can receive the ID value in the URL path. And whatever the ID value I am receiving in the URL path, I can delete that particular ID. Now the function to this is public, and after deletion I need to show the list. So the same integer comma student as the generic data type for the map, and I will say this function as delete student. I want to delete it. So how to delete it means, just I will say student dot remove is the method. Now you have to say what to remove. Okay. Now I'm going to say I need to remove a particular ID, but how to get this ID value? Just in the parameter, actually you are receiving one parameter here, that is int ID, and that parameter should be received from this path actually. So you have to use the annotation called at path variable, and whatever you are receiving in the path variable in name of ID will be assigned to this ID, and that ID will be used to remove the student. Now after removing, you just want to return the student list, that means student map. It will display the student value after removing the particular ID. And to do all these things, again you required response body to display it in a browser. Similarly, we will go with the put mapping, which is to update the data. I will listen for the same student. Now I need to receive the ID on which I need to update. as well as I need to receive the entire student object. What I need to update? Like I will be receiving in the request body the name and CGPA, but the ID value I will be receiving in the URL. So I will map the particular ID to retrieve the object or to delete the old object from the student map. And then the new value I will be receiving in the request body. So with that new value, I will be adding with this ID value to add a new student into the map. Let me do it. As usual, the return type I need as map, and this time it is for student. I am receiving the ID value as well as I want to receive the request body, that is the request which is from the put mapping. The JSON format request will be received in student yes. Now I need to first remove, to update now I will first remove the particular object from the student map. So how to remove it? You know the ID value which you received from the URL, that one particularly you have to update. So the one particularly I will remove and then I will update it. Like already I'm having a student object, assuming I'm having a student object with name and CGPA. I will just add the ID value there, yes dot set ID value, assuming I'm having the student object with name and CGPA and there is no ID value. For that purpose, I'm assigning the ID value now to the student object. After removing from the map, I'm assigning to the student object. Then I have to add it to the map as well. Now this makes the updation. Student.put the actual ID value and then you have to pass the object. Finally, as usual, return student object. Now you need to have again the response body annotation to get it in the browser window. We had made the post mapping to put the data into student map, and we had made the retrieval function, that is get mapping, to just display what is there in the student map. And delete mapping, we are receiving two things actually. ID we are receiving and then we are removing that one from the student map. Actually in the put mapping we are receiving two things, the ID and the request body. The request body will have the name and CGPA, and the ID which we are receiving, we are using it to remove that from student map and we are adding that ID in the same student object. So now the student object will have name, CGPA and ID. Then finally we are adding that student object in the student map. The added map is being returned. Now we will test this application. I will just right click the Restful application and then run as Spring Boot app. It is saying application started because we already have this system.out.println in our main file. which is saying application started, just to identify that the application is started. Now the application is started in the port 8080. We will just go to our, you will type now localhost 8080. It is saying hello world with ABCD, which is from our part 1 of application, that is retrieving from here. The goal now is to use this student based one. First we will retrieve and see with the slash student. When you say slash student from the browser, as we know, the browser will defaultly trigger the get mapping method. So that will trigger the show method here, which will return the student value, and we are having response body annotation which will display that in a browser. Now we will go and say just slash student. We know the slash student is being mapped with the 4 methods now, like show, insert student, delete student, and then put student. We will get the show method to be called because of the get mapping. That is because of the browser will defaultly trigger the get mapping based method. So now you can able to see in the output, you are getting the 2 student values, which will have the primary key because the map will have the key value pair. So the key is 1 and the value of the student object, and then the second key and the value of the student object. So now we will try to post the data as well. For making the post mapping to get trigger, as I said already, we need a JSP page, or else from the Postman app we have to hook it up. Now in this video we will use the Postman app to achieve this. We will use this Postman app for the post, put and delete as well. Now in this app you have to select the method to call. I am just using the post method, and then my URL is localhost 8080 slash. Now what I have to say to post the value? I have to say student slash student to post the value. Now I need to give the request body to post it. You can able to see here the body tag, that means the body tab. You can click on it, then you can write the JSON format of the request body. Just open the flower bracket and close it. Inside you need to have ID value. Everything you need to have it in double quotes. Okay, ID value and the value for the student ID 3. And second one, just have name. Name is name 3. Except the numbers, other things I'm having in a double quotes. Okay, including the left side and right side one. Okay, left side one the key, right side one the value. Both you need to have it in a double quotes, except the number values. Now CGPA, just I will say 9.6. Now my request body is been ready with the slash student, which will be called by the post method. When I send this, I will get the response back from this particular message. Okay, from this particular function, which will receive the student yes as object, which is the request body which I sent. That will be added into the student map and the new map will be returned to you. Since you are having the response body, you can able to see the output here. Now you see the output, that is 3 students. Okay, student 1, student 2 is already been there. Student 3 which I recently added. Suppose you want to get this in the browser, just use the same command now to retrieve the values, not to post the value, to retrieve the value. You will get the same value in the browser as well. Okay. Now we will check the delete as well. Go to the Postman app, just use the delete method. Now I want to delete /student. What is the ID to delete? You can able to see in the delete mapping, I had actually received the ID in the URL path. Then that particular ID I had removed. Let me delete it. You have to say what is the ID to delete. I want to delete the second student. No need of function body here. Just I will remove this. I'm just going to send the request. If I send the request, you can able to get the response here, which the response is not having the second student. It is only having the first and third student. You can also check that in the browser. Just give enter with the same URL. You will get 1 and third student. Now, let me focus on update the student. See, for updating the student, my put mapping is receiving the ID from the URL as well as it is receiving the request body. As I already said, my request body will have only the name and CGPA. The ID value, I am adding it here in the 76th line. Let me do it. I will go to the put method. I will say I want to update /student/1. That means the first student I want to update. Now let me have a body for the first student. I don't want the ID value here. I will have the student name as 10. Initially it was 1. I am changing to 10 and CGPA to 10. Now I am giving the ID value in the URL path and name and CGPA in the body. My request sending method is put. I will send the request. Let me listen for the output. Now see the output. In the output I am having the ID value 1 with the name 10 and CGPA 10. It has been updated. As usual, you can also check in the browser. It will reflect the changes. Now in this video, we had covered the put mapping, delete mapping, get mapping and post mapping with the student object. We inserted and deleted and did the crude operations in the map, which is a static nature. Initially it will have 2 data, then we had added our own data and deleted the things. Similarly, the same can be done with the database as well, and the same can be done with the JSP pages. That means user interaction as well. These two we will look in the further videos. Now, thank you.